on with you, Brian, but it's an auspicious day once again.
Yeah.
But this is 3 out of 4. So there's another indictment coming in Georgia. So listen, he's not that unlucky. He's a full-on rank criminal. And so I know his supporters will defend him and they'll say all kinds of stuff that it's a witch hunt, but it's not a witch hunt from 4 different groups. So you've got the city of New York, you got the Department of Justice. You got the Department of Justice on the documents and the J6 insurrection. And now you got the state of Georgia. So, I mean, this is big stuff. And so, listen, he's going to go down. And I think the fight will be among the remaining Republicans. I do not think he makes it to the nomination. I don't even think he makes it to Iowa.
Okay, so when you say you don't think he makes it, is that because you think he's going to back out of it? There might be some deal. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, he's going to back out of it. He's got too much pressure on him, too many court cases. He's right now using the nomination or the potentiality for the nomination as an obfuscatory tool to not go to jail or not be prosecuted. Okay, so he's got the delay. It looks like it's going on the documents trial. The Department of Justice requested a December trial. The judge said that's too quick. It'll likely go into February or March. But he's hoping and he's using, hey, I'm a political figure. I'm a political candidate, so you can't prosecute me right now. It's against the interests, if you will, of the electorate to do that. But I don't think that's going to hold up. And I think the scrutiny is going to just be overwhelming for him. They got him on tape in Georgia. I mean, it's sort of bizarre. It's literally what he said. I'm going to shoot people on Fifth Avenue, and it doesn't matter. There's going to be a group of people in the United States that support me no matter what.
Do you believe, Anthony, that Donald Trump knew he lost the election? Because Jared Kushner said that the opposite of that. He knew all along that he lost, right? This is his ego, right?
Yeah, of course. No, he knew. He was talking to people in 2016 about election fraud. And he was ready to claim that it's a rigged system. He fully expected to lose in 2016. And so if there's evidence that the system is not rigged, it's the election of Donald Trump, because no one wanted him in the establishment to be the president. And so the system's not rigged. He got full on legitimately elected in 2016. He got full on legitimately unelected in 2020. Now, remember, the Supreme Court ruled with those states. If you remember, the states, they took some liberties with the absentee ballots. And they said it's during COVID, a time of extremis. They lengthened the time of the delivery of the absentee ballots and so forth. Trump was trying to claim that that was election fraud, but the states proved that they had a fair and impartial process with those ballots. And the Supreme Court of the United States, which you and I both know is a conservative court, and justices that were put on the court by Donald Trump, 6 conservatives, 9 justices on the court in total, they ruled against Donald Trump. So listen, it's a bunch of malarkey, it's a bunch of nonsense. He knows it, I know it, you know it. But he's got a large group of people in the United States believing his election lie. So
I want to ask you about that. How is it
break
possible?
that fever somehow?
Yeah, Anthony, how is it possible that so many in the Republican Party still see this guy as their guy, and he's still the face of the party after all these indictments and everything that we've seen? How is it possible that Republicans still support this guy?
Well, it's a group of aging, disgruntled white people that are buying catheters and wheelchairs from Fox News commercial interruptions. And that's basically what it is. And so you have to understand that. And once you get that the Republican Party, rather than reshaping itself, and the Republican Party, rather than becoming an entrepreneur's party where they come up with new and re-engineered ideas, an American renewal, a party that would think about the beautiful, colorful mosaic of the American people and then adapt strategies and policies consistent with what the country looks like today, is a party of 1947. And I use 1947 for a reason, because that's before Jackie Robinson got on the playing field. So this is a party pre-April of 1947, and it's becoming a smaller and smaller party. And rather than changing their ideas, they're using all of these nuances in the system, like gerrymandering and getting people not to be able to vote or throwing out ballots,
Yeah.
so that they can maintain some type of semblance of power. And it's an irony. They're using what our great founders put in place to protect the minority voter. The founders didn't believe in mob rule, so they set up a republic. They had a couple of, that's why the Senate is set up with 2 per state. Rhode
Right.
Island has the same number of senators as California. It was to protect against mob rule.
Yeah.
But the Republicans have subverted that, and now we have the tyranny of the minority, where,
Yeah.
look, they're running the House, they're close on the Senate, and they are definitely controlling the Supreme Court.
Mooch, do you agree with me? I did this first hour where Jayapal makes a statement, obviously ridiculous, saying that Israel is a racist state. And so many Democrats come out and they denounce her comments. She apologizes. But I feel like when Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Matt Gaetz or a George Santos says or does something absurd, ridiculous, bigotry, whatever it is, I feel like Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans today, some of them come out, but very few, to denounce somebody who makes a statement like that in their own party. And I feel like today Democrats do it in an instant.
But Brian, they can't do it because they're technically in the demographic minority. Okay, George Santos is a full-on rank criminal. He's the representative from my district. Kevin McCarthy blows flowers up as you know what because he needs his vote. Okay, so this has gotten down to principle-less political expediency. Okay, this is why the American public, this is why the American Congress has an approval rating just slightly above the North Korean dictator. The American people have had enough of these people. They've had enough of this nonsense, but they don't know where to go. We're going to go with the 78-year-old Donald Trump or the 82-year-old Joe Biden. They don't know where to go. The best thing that the Republicans have going for them are the Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay, if this was 80 years ago, Franklin Roosevelt would fire Kamala Harris. He would say, "Okay, we gave you a couple-year run. You're not good at the job." Okay, Vice President Garner said that job, the vice presidency, wasn't worth more than a bucket of blank. They changed it to spit, but it meant something else. Right. And Roosevelt fired him. He then fired Wallace. Okay, and eventually he went with Harry Truman on his 4th term. But the point that I'm making is, in a meritocratic society that was less virtue signaling, Kamala Harris would be off the ticket. Yeah. You'd put somebody on there like a Lloyd Austin or somebody like that. And then that would solidify the situation for the president, because you can't look at the president objectively and say, hey, at 80, looking at his physical frailness at 80, let's go with this.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I
so listen, but I mean, if you're going to put him up against Donald J. Trump, I'm with Joe Biden.
Yeah, I know you are.
Why not replace her so that you can take the secession issue off the table?
Couldn't agree
Brian,
with you more.
Nobody wants Kendall Roy running Waystar. Okay,
You're right.
Nobody wants Kendall Roy running Waystar. So let's get off of this virtue signaling, and let's get on to, here's a merit-based decision to protect the American Republic, because Trump is openly now with his cohorts telling you he will do everything he can to deconstruct the administrative state. He will do everything he can to make this less of a democracy.
Right.
Because listen, if the white people are not going to be in charge, if black and brown people are going to overwhelm demographically the white people, we shouldn't give them a chance. We have to change the rules.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I never asked you this.
No problem. Let's leave it that way. And that's a bunch of malarkey. And that is completely unfair. And that's un-American. So I am a patriot first. I'm a partisan second. Right. And I side with the democracy, and I decide with the beautiful, colorful mosaic of the American people. But I don't know where we're going here, because we've got a lot of cynicism in the process.
Well, let me ask you this, where we're going. And I respect you for that, as for many other things. But I never asked you about Ron DeSantis. His numbers continue to plummet, and Donald Trump's numbers continue to rise. What are your thoughts on Ron DeSantis as a whole? And is that a guy that you could ever vote for?
Okay, the chair that I'm sitting on right now, Brian, is more magnetic and more charismatic than Ron DeSantis. The desk that this computer is on, okay? I mean, Ron DeSantis is a drip, okay? That's what my 86-year-old mother would call him. He's picked a fight with the largest employer in his state. He's the anti-woke guy, okay? So he's doing the opposite of virtue signaling. and he's nonsensical. Instead of talking about good policies and trying to endear himself to people, he has this weird low EQ distancing strategy. And, he was trying to boycott NBC News. They asked him a question he didn't like. Brian, they have put me in the media. They put me through the meat grinder. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been parodied on Saturday Night Live, destroyed by late night comedians,
Yeah.
ripped up by cable news pundits. And I show up. I got no problem. We have a free press, and I'm a public figure. This guy is a baby, okay, and he should not be the president of the United States. And he's getting exposed now on the very broad national platform on what a drip he is. But the chair I'm sitting on, okay, which is a very nice chair, I might add, and it's sort of, it's a bland white chair, but I'm just letting you know that this chair is more entertaining and more exciting and more charismatic than DeSantis. So he's got no shot, and they can throw $100-200 million at him. One of his fundraisers reached out to me, and I laughed. And I said, by the way, also DeSantis, I don't even know why, he went after me on some conservative radio show in New Hampshire, and somebody sent it to me. I'm like laughing. I'm like, okay, guy, first of all, I don't really know you, and you're going after me. That's fine. So guess what? I know how to fight back. Ask Donald Trump if I know how to fight back, Brian.
Well, you do. If there's one thing
I know how to fight back. So no problem for me. My wife is thrilled. When Trump lost, my wife was very upset in one way. I mean, she hates Trump almost as much as Melania hates him, and that's a very high bar. But she was like, what are we going to do now? Who are you going to end up fighting with? And I said, no, relax. There'll be other people to fight with. And now Governor DeSantis wants to fight, so I'm into it. I like it.
You'll definitely win that fight. There's no question about that. I have to ask you about this, and Ron DeSantis is a big part of this. Why are so many Republicans out there obsessed with gender ideology? Like Ron DeSantis was asked by Trey Gowdy on Fox News, how are you going to end the war in the Ukraine? And he talks about gender ideology. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. I mean, so many of these Republicans, they protest outside of Target. Our kids are being indoctrinated. They don't want to talk about gun control or the real issues facing children. And they want to talk about drag queens reading books to children. Why are so many Republicans obsessed with gender ideology?
Well, because it works. Okay, so they test that, and it works in that group of catheter and wheelchair buyers that I described in the Fox News commercial interruption segment. It works with them. Because when you say that there's a gender this or a gender that or a groomer this or a groomer that, oh, the world's falling apart. Remember, people get to a certain age and they long for the past. And they say, oh, the past was way better than it is today. But if you poll people in 1947, they said, well, 1917 was better. 1977, well, they said 1947 was better. Everybody does that. It's a psychological phenomenon. And so what happens is it works, and it scares the bejesus out of the people that they're trying to attract to the voting booth. And they're saying, okay, wait a minute, the culture is changing, and Ron DeSantis is the guardian of my old culture, and I would like to live in my old culture, so I'm going to vote for Ron DeSantis. Where he's flawed and where they're wrong is that the culture has changed, but the country is working. This phenomenal, beautiful experiment known as America, this collective of multi-ethnics and multi-religions is actually working. It's become the most successful country in the world because of the flatness of the country and because of the general meritocracy of the country. And they would be better served figuring out ways to help people become more aspirational as opposed to becoming culturally desperational. Yeah. You see, they're preying on the culturally desperate.
Yep.
I would like to appeal to the aspirations of the society, not the fears of the society. And you know this, Brian, and I know this. If there's a transgender person, God bless them. They can live their life. If you're a conservative Christian, you know what? There's a spot and there's a lot of runway for you to live your life unfettered by them, and vice versa. That is the beauty of the United States of America. But these guys, they want to narrow it down. They want to create hate and fear mongering, and because it works. But you know what? The good news is it's working on a smaller and smaller base of people. Yeah. And so hopefully there'll be a transformative Republican leader.
I hope so.
That comes in there and says, hey, this is stupid. This does not work. We're pro-growth. We'd like moderate regulation. We don't want Gary Gensler over-regulating the securities industry or the crypto industry. We want fair, judicious regulation, and we want pro-growth strategies to create an aspirational opportunity for Americans. We don't want equal outcomes because that's communism, but we do want equal opportunity because that's Americanism, okay? A platform of equal opportunity. If the kid's not born into the right family, let's get them a good education and really good quality health care so that they can get to the starting block and compete with the rich kids. That's all.
That's all. That's why you need to run for office, Anthony. We're running out of time here, but I want to ask you.
No, I'm running for re-election in my marriage, man. My wife believes in castration, Brian. I can't run for office.
You are a reasonable,
I like my body parts, Shapiro. I can't run for office. Okay, I just want to make sure you know that.
Fair enough. I respect that, but you're a reasonable, extremely intelligent, successful guy. We need more people like you, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care. Last question. We only have 2 minutes left here. I have to ask you this. I know it's been a minute since you spoke to Donald Trump.
Yes.
If you were in a room with him alone right now, I'm curious, what would you say to him?
Well, it would take me longer than a minute, but I would say, I know you're scared. You know what? I know you're scared. You know what? We're on the radio, and I know you're frightened. I know you're going to overreact to everything, but I would work with my lawyers right now to take a powder on these cases. You're the former president of the United States. You'll be able to negotiate a settlement where you don't end up going to jail. Tell people you're not running anymore. Handpick a successor that you like for your movement and hang out in Mar-a-Lago. That's what I would tell him to do. If he doesn't do that, okay, due to his pride or his ego or his stubbornness, I think he's going to end up in a bigger disaster. You've got zealous prosecutors that want his scalp, and they've got him on the evidence. And so to me, I would negotiate a settlement is what I would tell him, and I would get out of the political arena. His time has already passed. You are the worst politician since Herbert Hoover for the Republicans. You lost the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and your time has passed. Let's cut it out now. You're not going to go to jail, but cut the deal.
That's really, really good advice. He probably wouldn't take advice from anybody, and he
No,
should.
he never took any advice from anybody. That's how I got fired. I mean, I was pushing back on stuff, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? If he kept you and treated you better as the communications director, he would have had a better presidency, and he wouldn't have so many of I believe, so many of the issues that he's dealing with now. Anthony Scaramucci, you're always one of my favorite guests.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Love talking to you and catching up with you, my friend. And you have a beautiful family and a very successful business. And I appreciate you coming on and taking the time, my friend. We'll catch up with you soon. And when you come to Vegas, steak dinner on me, my friend.
You got it, brother. Enjoy the summer. Okay. I hope to speak to you soon.
Thanks, Mooch. Appreciate that. Anthony Scaramucci, always one of my favorite guests. I have so much respect for him. Listen, Joe Walsh is one of my favorite guests too. Like Scaramucci, you know, he was a supporter back in the day. But we need more people like Anthony Scaramucci. We need more people like Joe Walsh. Anthony Scaramucci's of the world running for office. I know Anthony doesn't have to run and he won't run.